Hi, people. Good morning. Today, I'll be taking us through a broader concept of what we did yesterday. So, in case you missed my yesterday video, you can just check the previous link on how you can install my SQL Server on your Mac, right? For those using Windows, it's a very seamless process for you, like I said yesterday. Very easy. But for Mac, you need to install Docker, you need to install npm CLI, and then you can begin to connect your MySQL server alongside your data, Azure Data Studio. So you can run your SQL on your local computer, right? So you can be employed in a company and you have to use cloud infrastructure, right, to do this. But what happens when you don't have those cloud facilities to run your SQL code? You have to install them on your local computer. And that is why the previous video was done yesterday. And then today I'll be taking all of us through a walkthrough of how we can use data definition language to create tables within the database and how we can begin to query those tables and make certain decisions or insights from those analysis. First of all, we can go ahead to, first of all, check in our Docker container here. You can see that SQL Server is running here effectively. Remember how we did this yesterday? On our Docker image, we downloaded these particular images for my SQL Server. And then we can launch this Azure Data Studio. So what we want to do now is that we want to launch this and then create a connection. So for creating a connection, you can just come to new connection here, and then you can select a server name. So I'll choose localhost as my server, and then SA. Your username, please, your username and password should be the same username and password you use while creating your Docker container on terminal, please. If this is different from what you did yesterday or what you did for Docker terminal, it's going to send you an error. For example, now if I use random password and then I connect here like this, you'll see that login field for user SA, right? Because this connection is wrong because the password is incorrect, right? So you have to make sure that your username and password is the same with what you did from the terminal that you run. So let's go ahead to put our correct password and let's see what happens. Docker strong pwd123. So let's see what happens this time around, if it's going to log us in or not. Voila, we are in. So this is what you need to take note of, right? Make sure that the password and username from your terminal is the same with the one you're going to be connecting to your Azure Data Studio localhost. So here we can just go direct to write a new query. For now, we can create tables on our database. So database here, we have a default database, master database, right? If you want to know how you can create database on SQL, you can check through SQL documentation. That's the very seamless process. Just create database, name of your database, and you run that, you have your database. Then you can use your database and then begin to create tables within your database, right? So the first thing here, I want to create table. Please, I like to put all my SQL keyword syntax in caps locks. That's a good practice. So your SQL keywords to be in cap lock. So it doesn't mean that if you put it in small letter, it won't run. It will still run, but good practice says you have to put them in caps locks. So let me create my table name to be employee info, right? So I want to insert I want to create a particular, if you create a table, you need to put a feed name, right? You want this table to have different feed name carrying your employee information, such as employee's name, address, phone numbers, and the likes of them, right? So the first thing I want to create here is unique ID for each employee, right? So ID is, let me make my ID to be voucher. Yeah, let me make my ID to be voucher, and then this should be 30. And then let me give my ID a primary key. So primary key is a unique identifier, right, within a particular table or schema. So unique identifier has their own rules. For example, a unique identifier must not be a null value. A unique identifier must be unique, just like the name implies. So you don't have repetitive word. If I have ID 101 for one user, there shouldn't be any other user that will carry ID 101 within the same table, right? That will within the same database, not even the table. That will throw up an error, right? Every user should carry a unique ID. That is what we mean by the primary key. So um, it's a particular key constraint, right, for normalization of our database. So here we can go further by creating our first name. So first name varchar. Let's say this is 50. Last name varchar. This is 50. Full name. Sorry, this is 100. Let's say this is 100. Yeah. Then we want to have email address of each employee. So varchar 100. Then gender varchar 10. Then age, sorry, age integer, right? Our age is integer. So from here, let's leave it as simple as this for demonstration. You can add as many field name you want, be it in hundreds or thousands, depending on how you want your database to appear. So for demonstration, let me just keep it simple as possible. So we can go ahead to run this, and then we can see that it is successfully run. So for we to check this, we can go ahead to comment on this, right? Comment on this, and then we just query our database. So query from employee info here. So once we run this, we can see that we have ID, first name, last name, full name, email, gender, and age. So these are the field name for our employee table, right? So you can decide to query just to, let's say, ID and first name separated by a comma, right? And then you run this, and then it gives you just the ID and first name, right? So this is how you can create a table in MySQL server and then query that table to see the values in it. Now, next we will go on to insert values into our tables, right? We want to create instances for this table. So let's go ahead to write the syntax of this. Insert into employee info values. Let's say 10001. Let's call this guy John Mark. John Mark happens to be a very good friend of mine back then in college. John Mark, and let's say we have email address should be jm12 at gmail.com. 32 years old. So let's go ahead to run this. You can see that ID, first name, last name, full name. Okay, sorry, we didn't include the gender. That's why. So please, any values you input, you have to make sure that it correlates with the numbers of fields you created, right? So for this, we didn't include the gender, and that's why we are getting that error. So once we include the gender now here, let's say male, then let's rerun this again to see. So you can see that one row has been affected effectively. So once we go ahead to comment this and say select from employee info here. So let's see what it looks like. Voila, this is it. So we have the ID, the first name, the last name, the full name, email address, gender, and age. So this is our first employee for this our particular table. So I'll go ahead to insert other values, but before that, I am going to pause this video so I don't bore you with numerous inserts. So I'll just go ahead and insert few values by pausing this video. So see you in a few minutes time. Yeah. Yeah, so welcome back, people. You can see that I have inserted other values into this table. So we remove the 101 because repeating this is going to give us an error because of the primary key that we said it has to be unique. And then we don't want repetition on the ID, so that's going to give us an error. So these are the values we have inserted into the table. So let's go ahead to run it and see what we get. So you can see that 9 rows have been affected. Let's go ahead to comment on this, and then we can say select from asterisk from employee info, and then let's run this. Wow. So this is our table, right? So these are the 10 employees that we currently have inside this particular table, right? So these are, you can create your table and insert values into your table in MySQL, right? So let's say we want to check some queries here for this. First of all, we can query, we can select columns, right? Column 1, let's say we want to select ID and gender from employee info, right? And let's run this and see. So we have just the ID and gender selected. So you want to select any column name, you can just select it and separate it by a comma, right? So this is how you can select it. Another thing I will want to show us here is that we can perform order operation here, right? Let's say we want to do something like select this, and then we want to say from this, where, right? Where gender is equal to male, right? Where gender is equal to male. Sorry. Where gender is equal to male. So we can select this and run this. For some reason, MySQL doesn't accept double quotation for strings, just like your Python programming language does. So that was the initial error I got. So this is for all male gender. So if you want that for female, you can just say where gender is equal to female, and then you have this like that, right? So you can take on and create numerous tables within the same database, right? You can do it like that. Now, another thing we want to show is that we want to select this, we want to show the distinct keyword. The distinct keyword is used after the select statement. So distinct is used to select unique value. So if I select only gender for distinct, let's see what is going to happen. Let me remove this where constraint, and distinct for gender. You can see that we have just female and male gender. So that shows that yes, in this table we have just female and male gender, right? Now, if I select distinct for first name, you can see that all our first name are unique. So that's why we are having all of them popped up. So if you have repetition for first name here, it's going to pick just one value. So the things work, you know how set works when you're trying to combine two sets together. Let's say set A and set B, and then we have repeated value from set A and set. Let's say we have 2 in set A and 2 in set B. So you want to perform union. So it's going to select just one value from one of those sets. So that's how the distinct works, right? If you want to relate this to mathematics. So another thing we want to show here is that we can select a keyword called top. So we can say top has a particular accept a particular value inside of it. So top 3 for this, right? So it gives us the top 3 value, right? John, David, and Winifred. So you specify whatever top 5, you specify whatever value. So these are keywords that come along with the select statement in MySQL. So apart from this, we have aggregations, right? We have aggregation, but for aggregation, we can decide to say let's check one aggregation and see what it's going to give us. So let's say select. We want to see the number of rows in this particular table. So we can say employee info, and then we can use the count. Count is counting the number, right? So we can see that we have just 10. So in case you don't want to see, in case you want to see you want to see a new value, you don't see no column name, it's very simple. There is something called aliases in SQL. So you can just use the has keyword and say number of rows or number of values. And then when you run this, you see that it has a number of values instead of no column names here. So you can specify anything, right? You can say row counts, right? I can come here and say has row counts. Let me say row counts. And then I run this, it changes to, sorry. Okay, row count is a keyword. Oh, just exactly what I was saying, that we shouldn't use a keyword. So let's say count. I think this should work. Perfect. Count row. So this is 10. Now, another thing we might want to check for aggregation is that we want to use maximum. So we want to check the maximum age, right? Maximum age. So you can put maximum and then pass the age column inside of it. So we want to see the highest age. So the oldest age here is 39 years old. So what do we want to see? That user that has the highest age here, right? Want to see that user that has the highest age here. So it's going to give us error. Do you know why? Because we need to put a group by statement, right, together with an aggregation statement. That's why it's going to give us an error. So that's an intentional error for my part. So once we do this, we're going to have this, right? This shows us the maximum age, blah, blah, blah. But this doesn't give us a clear meaning, right? So how do we get the clear meaning? We can now use something called order by, right? Order by age, descending order, right? So once you use descending order, it's going to give us, sorry. All right. So order by the maximum age here is going to give us the user with the highest age. So you can see that the oldest person in this company right now is Johnson Godwin. So this is how we can use simple query. So in our next video, I am going to create another table, right? Like an employee salary table, like this. Let's say create table and then employee salary. So then we can open a parenthesis here and say, yeah, we want to create an employee ID, right? So employee ID, we want it to be voucher, then voucher. I think we used 30 the first time. So let's maintain that. So here the employee ID is not going to be primary key, it's going to be a foreign key. So I'm going to show you like how we can do this relationship among tables, right? So this is going to be primary key and it's going to be the foreign key, right? So employee salary, employee ID, we want to have employee full name. Sorry, we want to have first name and 50. Want to have last name and 50. Want to have full name, 100. And then we want to have email, 100. And then lastly, we want to have let's say position, let's say role. Let's just give it position, right? Position should be voucher, 100. Then lastly, let's say salary. So salary integer, right? So, but advisably, please, salary should be floats, right? So for floats, we want to put 5,2, right? So this is how we can name our floats. So 5,2. But for demonstration, it's just using that. So what we mean by 5,2 is that 5 dots 2 decimal places. So we can have thousands of naira. Let's say this employee is in thousand. We can put just 5 dots. The remaining, let's say $1,000 dot 00 cents, for example. So that's why we put float 5,2 there. So then let's go ahead to create this table, right? So then we can go ahead to comment on this. Let's select from employee salary and run this, right? So in our next video, we are going to insert values into this particular table. And then from here, we are going to see how we can um, perform some more intermediate query. But I'm going to go with the first, and I want to go with the simple query for beginners and then move on to intermediate query. So the basic simple query for beginners is very simple. The first one is the select statement. You need to know the from statement, the where statement, right? Uh, you need to know the order by, group by, having, right? So these are the basic statements. You need to know the limits, offsets. So these are basic statements that you need to know. All right, stop, distance. Yeah. So let's say I want to select from employee info, right? I'll select everything from employee info, right? Remember we created this table here. So limit it to be 5. So let's see what happens here. Select from employee info. Is that the name of this table? Yes, that's it. From employee info, sorry. Select from employee. What's happening? I think for some reason my SQL doesn't support the limits, really. Okay, I'm going to see how we resolve this in the next video. I think it's enough for now, so I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for your time. Bye bye.